Hi, and welcome to another episode of Composed Living with Elsa Elbert. I am your host, Elsa. Today I have two special guests. I'm excited to introduce you to the hosts of the Girl Can You Talk podcast, Christy Melgoza and Anna Allen. Christy is a wife and mom of two teen girls. She started her career as a ballroom and worked her way up to being a top competitor, judge, and coach. Christy's raising her kids while also running her two Arthur Murray dance studios. Her mission is to share the challenges and triumphs of being a midlife menopausal business mama, and she is passionate about advocating for your own physical and mental health. Love that. Anna Allen is a wife and retired helicopter mom turned empty nester who's on a mission to inspire women to live unapologetically at every age. With 4 children and 3 grandchildren, she's all about embracing midlife, staying mentally and physically fit, and never taking no for an answer. On the Girl Can You Talk podcast, these two lifelong besties leave no stones unturned. Christy and Anna dive deep into all of the things your mama didn't: friendships, relationships, hormones, raising kids, and letting them go. These ladies are the voice of the perfectly imperfect reality of the modern midlife woman. Their mission is to help women feel better, live better, and know that they're not alone. Please welcome Christy and Anna. Welcome, Christy and Anna. Thank you so much for being my guests today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we are very excited. Thank you.
Of course. I'm loving the background on both of your walls. I know I already told you that, but for the record, so all the listeners and viewers can see, it's like so coordinated and beautiful. And my game.
It's the background of our thumbnail. It's about that color. So we thought we'd stick with the theme,
It's so beautiful. It's somehow like very vibrant, but also calming. Like, I don't know. I'm very into it.
It's the whole plant and the purple. So we have like the party, but then also the like very,
I feel like we're working on our composed living.
Yeah, well, you're doing better than I am. As I showed you, I turned Chad's office into a guest room for the holidays. And then I was like, I wonder how long I can just put off turning it back into an office again.
Right. Well, if you only saw the other side
of
my podcast room, it's a shoe room, it's a closet. I have my Peloton literally right in front of me, like I could jump on right now and exercise. Amazing. I'm just saying, yeah.
Multitasking extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, again, thank you both for being here. Maybe you can just introduce yourselves, give us like a little bit of your background. And then together you can share with us how you all started your podcast, Girl Can You Talk?
Okay.
Awesome. Go ahead, Christy. You introduce yourself first.
All right. Well, I am Christy Melgoza. You can find me on socials, Christy Melgoza. See how I got that in right away?
Very good.
Anyways, so my whole career prior to this podcast, I'm a ballroom dancer. My parents owned a ballroom dance studio. I started at the age of 18. I was a teacher. I competed for 12 years and eventually won. The first time, I got 6th out of 7th, but I kind of forgot about that. And then got my judges and my coaching, and my husband and I have 2 ballroom dance studios. And that was 19 years ago. I have 2 teenage daughters, 19 and 17. I'm a half empty nester. So I only cried like every other day. One is at home and the other one's not. And I don't know, I'm 50 years old. So, I found myself going, okay, I did that. Now what? And so Anna and I have been in a couple of businesses together, and being menopausal, premenopause hit me really hard. And so it was just my mission to like talk about all these things that we go through. And that's kind of how we ended up doing this podcast. Girl, Can You Talk?
Awesome.
I am Anna. I'm Anna's Bubble on Instagram with one N, Anna's Bubble. Rhymes with bananas, bubble, I guess. I am a stay-at-home mom turned empty nester. You get like this forced retirement when you've been a stay-at-home mom for a long time. So I've raised 4 children, 2 of which came from my body. And in between those 2 children, my husband and I adopted 2 teenagers. So we were a family of 2 professionals in 1998. And by the year 2000, we had 4 children. I was a stay-at-home mom to a wonderful husband that had to work his bum off to make that happen. I wouldn't change it for the world. And what happens is, well, what happened to me is when I became an empty nester, all of a sudden I was like, I don't know who I am if I'm not their mom every day. I mean, you're their mom every day, but their everyday mom. So when my youngest went off to college in 2018, Christy and I were talking every day. We were kind of talking through what she was going through actually when her premenopause hit her pretty hard. And we talked all the time. My husband was like, look, you guys need a podcast. And we were like, I don't even know, because he could hear us talking all the time, talking through everything, like constant solutions for any problem out there in the world. And he was like, you guys need a podcast. And I thought that getting a podcast meant like you had to go like radio show, because I'm a Gen Xer. And to me, pretty close to a boomer, I think. And to me, a podcast was a radio show. When I realized that it was something we could just get on and talk, that kind of rocked my world. And I was like, you know what? People need to hear this because there's so many parts of being in these different stages of womanhood that nobody talks about. It's like an unspoken sadness. And so now that we're talking about it, we're really starting to, I feel like we're starting our mission to help people. And I'm pretty proud of it.
I love that. When I met Christy in person for the first time, she had mentioned like going through her own physical journey and having to like advocate for herself to find solutions that worked for you. And I worked in healthcare for a long time. And I've always been such a big proponent of educating yourself on your own body and on what works for you and on trying everything. Like if, Western medicine doesn't do it for you, try Eastern medicine, try traditional, like just it's your body. And that just resonated with me so much because I feel like that's something I try to teach all of the young people that work with me too, is like doctors are not infallible. And if something's not helping you live your best life, then, you kind of got to go out there and figure it out. But it's so wonderful when you don't have to do that alone and you have people like the 2 of you who are sharing your experiences and hopefully your listeners find some things that work for them too, or they feel more connected. But the mission is so beautiful. I love it.
Well, it's funny too, because when we would see people in person, we're willing to kind of spill the beans, right? And people would go, me too. And so at some point it became like, gosh darn it, it can be better. Like, I think, we talk about like Instagram and all the perfect pictures and the perfect videos, and people don't realize that even the perfect life, when you're happy and you're grateful, that hard things still happen. And so, we're talking about it with each other, but we would have other people go, me too. And we're like, seriously? So it just kept happening and kept happening. And actually, Anna and I both, started it actually more on social media, like doing menopausal dances and, happy Anna, happy dances and all the things. And then we actually recorded a show, Christy and Anna's show. It was a YouTube. It was in 2020.
Yeah.
And we started there, and then it kind of fell by the wayside. And then because we live in 2 different towns, once we realized, oh, wait a minute, we can do this remotely. Anna, pushed really hard, and her husband. And finally we were like, okay, we need to do this because this is ridiculous. Like every time you bring up certain subjects and other people feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think that I'm sorry, Christy, I didn't mean to speak for you.
That's okay. I might have said we a couple times too.
Okay,
and
good.
I don't know if they're going to edit it out. So just say we, so I don't look like, I'm speaking for you too.
As long as
it all in there.
as long As long as we don't say literally, right?
We will. It's coming. Just
It's
wait
coming.
for it
Oh, you'll have to watch the show or
to
listen to the show.
understand the word literally.
Uh, one of the things that we realize too is that a lot of people don't have girlfriends that they can just talk about everything. And I think that may even be something, it's not just an Instagram thing. It's not just a current thing. I think that our moms didn't know they should talk about these things. When you're supposed to be proud of your children for going off to college, you can't be sad. No, you can't be sad. You have to put on a happy face because you're a lady or you're a mom. And I think that really resonated with me at one time. And that's when I said, I had so many women say to me, I wish I had a friend I could talk to like that. And so we are very blessed. And what do you do when you're blessed with something? You give. And I think that us talking sometimes to somebody and just giving them that friendship in those times had made me realize that, gosh, people need to hear from other women the real behind the scenes. And
Oh yeah.
that's how we have really been, that's our mission, is to give people the real behind the scenes so they can live like they want to live.
I love that. I think especially in a world where, people are putting sort of their best foot forward or maybe their fakest foot forward on social media. It's really difficult to feel like your life measures up sometimes. And, even with composed living, like we try to, it can seem very formal, right? To be like a professional organizer and everyone's like, your house must always be perfect. And it's like, it's not perfect. It's perfect for our family and how we function. And that's different for everyone. And if it does look tidy one day, it's because I put a lot of work into it. It's not like a magical thing. I just happen to be a professional organizer. And so there's like Mary Poppins running around tidying up after my kids.
Don't burst
Like,
our
it's
bubble.
still
That's
me.
how I
I'm
picture
still
it.
doing the
Don't
work.
burst my bubble.
I'm still outside that door. There's like 4 loads of laundry that I'm going to do today. So it really, like for me, it's just about teaching people that it's a habit and it's a lifelong habit and it is hard work. And if that's something that's important to you, then you'll do the work to build that habit. And if it's not, then you won't. And that's fine too. As long as your life is your happiest life and you're making those decisions, that's really all we want to inspire people to do.
That's
Uh,
right.
but when you said a lot of women don't have friends they can talk to, that also sticks with me because I do have a large circle of very close girlfriends, many of whom I've known my entire life, but I don't know a single woman who's close to me who's in the same stage of life as I am. So I
There
have
you go.
girlfriends who are older than me who have 5-year-old kids. My daughter's 23. Like we
Right.
could not be indifferent. So even though like we've been best friends since I was 13 years old, we're not at the same stage of parenting. So she's still doing like driving 2 kids to 100 different activities while I have an adult child who, like it's a different struggle because I'm no longer allowed to make decisions for their life because they're their own human adult now.
Right.
Yeah.
Your your 23-year-old, you said that's a daughter.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Isn't
she lives there, so
and she lives there.
yeah.
Isn't that the crazy thing when you're talking to your friend that has a 5-year-old daughter and you're like, oh my gosh, she's so precious.
Yeah.
I can't wait until she turns 12. When I remember talking to Christy about my teenage daughter when I was going through it and like crying, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, oh man. And like, Christy,
That'll
can you
never happen to my
that's
child.
my daughter is so even keeled or
You
whatever.
just don't, you don't fathom it. You're like, okay. And then, cause Anna had kids, prior to me. So there was a stage in our relationship where like I was still career and she was deep in kids. And then once I had kids and then as they started to grow up,
Yeah.
we reconnected on a more regular basis once hers were older. But I think what's cool about the podcast is that we do try, even though we're 50, I'm half empty nester, she's full empty nester, we're both 50. We are also talking about previous experiences and current experiences because the whole point is if you know it's coming and hopefully that we talk about it, it might soften the blow.
Right.
So like, for example, when premenopause for me came out of I was like a goer, wanting to achieve and high energy and all this stuff. And I felt like my personality literally left the building. I had no energy. I had no gumption. And I just was like, what is wrong with me? And I think there are a lot of different stages, whether maybe it's when you first have your baby and you're like, what is wrong with me? Why aren't I happy or whatever? So if I would have known the signs, it didn't just come out of the middle and nowhere. I'm sure there were signs along the way that maybe if I had a podcast like Girl Can You Talk where people talked about it, it wouldn't have hit me so hard. I
Yeah.
still we all go through menopause, but if I know how to handle it easier, maybe it wouldn't have been so crazy. Or like, for example, with Anna with Empty Nest, she was before me. It's helping me to make sure, wow, I've got to make sure I've got some stuff for myself. Here we are with the podcast, right? So,
Yeah.
mhm.
I mean, it's one thing that all women can connect on is what your body physically goes through. So whether or not you,
Oh, yeah.
because that's the other side of it. Half of my girlfriends, probably more than half of them, are in their 40s and are single with no kids.
Oh,
So
wow.
again, like another totally
Yeah.
Yeah.
different life circumstance. But one thing we all have in common is, we're all going to age in relatively the same ways. We're all going to go through the same hormonal fluctuations.
Mhm.
And, while we may have a slightly different experience of that, it's coming for all of us.
It's coming.
It's on its way. I've always been a huge proponent of Eastern medicine. I think mostly because both of my parents are not American, and we were not raised really to have such a like strongly rooted faith in Western medicine alone. I also had like an acupuncturist from a very early age. I wanted to be an acupuncturist at one point in my life. So that's kind of a big passion of mine and also just a belief system of mine. But I had gone to doctors in my early 30s for so many issues where multiple doctors told me that can't be because you're too young. So I had bunions from wearing heels basically for 20 years of my life, for 14 hours a day and also running. And it was so obvious, like my feet were disfigured and I couldn't walk without holding on to furniture. Just
Oh my
walking at
gosh.
the age of 32, I couldn't walk
Oh,
without
my gosh.
assisting myself. And the response from two surgeons was, we can't do the surgery because you're too young to have bunions. It's like,
But I
can
do.
you,
So
can you look at my
So there's
x-rays
that.
now? And so advocating for myself, I was like, I'm not going to take no for an answer here because it's
Yes.
not
Yes.
reasonable to me that I can't walk and I'm in my early 30s. And so I found someone who was like, yes, absolutely. And it's better to do the surgery now because your body's younger and you'll recover faster. And I was like,
Wow.
yes, thank you. You're my people. And then years after that, same, I went through multiple general practitioners and they could not figure out what was going on with me. I was losing my hair, my fingernails were breaking off. And these were all so different from my normal. I had gained like 40 pounds with no real explanation. Sex drive, absolutely nothing. Like my husband was like, what is going on? You don't love me anymore. I was like, I swear it's not you. Like, it's not that I want to have sex with someone else. I just have no interest in this whole area of my life.
yeah.
And finally, I talked to my acupuncturist about all of that. Like, I was like, it didn't dawn on me to like talk to my acupuncturist about sex. I grew up with a mom who was like, we never mention this word. Like, it's not an okay topic. Like, never talk about it. It's disgusting. Like, just
Aw.
very opposite of how we try to be, I think, with our kids this generation.
Yes.
And she put it all together. She's like, you have migraines, your hair's falling out, your sex drive is gone. She's like, you're in premenopause and your doctor should have caught this. I showed her all of my lab results and she's like, it shows right here, all your hormone levels show
Yeah.
at the age of 36, your hormones are like a 52-year-old woman.
Oh my
And
gosh.
all she
Well,
did was
that's some,
like start acupuncture and herbs. And then it was like, I was hot all the time. I would sit in our house with ice packs on my head while the rest of my family is like bundled up in blankets. And I was like, I feel like I'm roasting from the inside out.
right.
And,
But you were too young.
oh yeah, too
That was
young.
the thing. But
Nobody
what,
would even consider. And it was stress. Like I was so stressed out. My body went into perimenopause by the time I was 36. And so I mean,
Gosh.
I hadn't had a period in forever. Uh,
Okay, you just painted
so
a
much.
picture that is so funny to me because the reason why I say it's funny is I really thought that it was like an exaggerated picture, okay, where everybody in your house is freezing, but you're holding the ice pack, right? No,
Real life.
listeners, this is real life. Like that is no exaggeration. I'm going through all of the hot flashes thing pretty significantly right now. It started trickling in and now it's like bam. In the middle of the night, like 2 weeks ago in the middle of the night, I'm sleeping and I wake up and I hear my heater on and I get up and I'm like, God, just get an extra blanket. I was all mad, right? And I go to look at the thermostat. It was 59 degrees in my house.
oh
Yep.
my
And my
gosh.
husband said, Anna, I set the heater to come on at 60 degrees. It was 59 degrees and I was sweating like
That is
not
so crazy.
it's not just night sweats. It's you're freaking hot,
All the time.
dude.
All the time.
It's a thing.
Well, it's funny because like for me, it was like 44. But once I started doing my research and then doing reels on it and all the things, it's perimenopause and premenopause. It can be like 15 years or something
Yeah.
crazy. And so that's what we're saying as far as like the signs, and they are different for everybody. But so I went to my doctor because I talked to a girlfriend and she said, get your hormones checked. So they asked me if I still had my monthly, and I did. And they said, oh no, you still have your period. We don't check hormones. So I also found a integrative medicine, more holistic approach where they checked all of my everything, and my thyroid was low, which is hello energy, metabolism, all the
Wow.
things. And my hormones were all over the place. And then I cried. Just kidding. I really did though. Like I went into the office and I was like, I'm not going to. I was like totally crying. And the doctor listened to me, first of all, like hey, this is how I normally feel. This is how I feel now. And then I of course I cried. And then once they got the results back, that's what I found out. So it took me on this whole path of like, even though I was already into health and wellness and already into fitness and worked out and ballroom dancer and wanted to um, keep my ballroom dance body, but not be a competitive dancer, be a mom. Um, it definitely took me even more dramatically to like what you were talking about, finding more holistic ways. Like if it doesn't make sense to you,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And so, I have found some really great doctors, but again, if it doesn't make sense, talk to a girlfriend. I mean, people always want, like, don't we love ladies to refer when we find something really good, like a good acupuncturist or a good, I talk about my doctor all the time. I
Yeah.
love my
You want
doctor. If you
everyone
don't
to have
love
the
your
same
doctor,
wonderful experience.
yeah, keep looking until you can say, I love my, I even said that to him.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dr. Fan, just so you know, you're like my second husband. And it's okay. Well, like I love you. I said something like that and he laughed. Like, and of course it was a joke. But anyways.
That's so great. But yeah, you're right. We want to share those resources. But they don't always work for everyone. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who are still terrified to see an acupuncturist. And no matter how many times I say, like, it's not painful, it's very calming, it's relaxing. I swear you'll love it. They're just not into the idea of hundreds of teeny little needles being poked into their body. And I get that. I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I'm like, leave them in all day. I don't care. I'll walk around like a little monster with needles poking out of my face.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's gonna make me feel better, like that's the biggest thing. And for me, just having the awareness of what's happening with my body was such a game changer because it took away the anxiety, it took away the frustrations, and it gave me something that I could focus on. And I felt like I had more control over the outcome. So I could figure out like when was I most prone to getting migraines and like how does that sync up with what's going on with my body? I could figure out how to reduce that heat. I mean, I carried a thermometer with me everywhere because I thought I always had a fever. And then
Oh
I
my
would
gosh.
test it. I'm like, maybe this thermometer's broken. Like, get a new one. And
You're
every
like,
time it would come back, it's like you're 97.5. I was like, I'm not even as hot as I'm supposed to be. I feel like I'm 200 degrees. It's wild.
I always felt like it started with like the back of my head. It would feel like I was sitting under a heater on the back of my head, and I'm like, gosh, I'm hot. And then all of a sudden, and then Christy was like, yeah, I think I had a hot flash or something. I'm like, it's a hot flash. That's why the back of my head was hot.
but it is funny how it is different for everybody, because I would get like internally warm, but I never got like the sweats. And then Anna would talk about getting like night sweats. I'm like, I don't get it. And then there was one morning I like woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was literally sweating from my tits. I went
Literally.
to the bathroom and I was like, oh, this is what she's talking about. I got up, I went pee in the middle of the night, and I was just dripping. But just, for all the listeners, it's like, for me, that wasn't one of the symptoms. Like, I didn't lose my hair. Like, I think it's good to talk about it because there are so many different signs and symptoms to that.
Yeah.
I would just all of a sudden get like really warm all of a sudden, then it would kind of go down, and it would just be at random times.
So you get it.
It's funny because I had both. I would wake up every single night just completely soaked through. Like my sheets would be wet.
Oh,
And I couldn't ever sleep because I love the weight, the heaviness of a blanket on me. It makes me feel safe. But there's nothing, like I couldn't keep anything physically on my body because I was too hot. And then during the day, it would be random moments where I'm like, it would come on so fast. And again, not sweaty, but feeling like my insides were on fire. That's why I was like, this has to be a fever. There's nothing else that would come on. And then I was just so confused. I'm like, I know I'm not making this up. I actually feel this heat. Why isn't it registering on a thermometer? Like, what is going on?
I think the craziness is then you're going through this as an emotional being a lot of times, whether you're a mom or if you are not a mom, but you are, going through the world wondering like, okay, now I'm in the middle of my life. What's next? And I think that is the part where you feel like you're breaking down, you're emotional. You don't know who you are. And one of the things which I found out later was like a symptom or like a something that happened. Yeah, a symptom is you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. It's an odd feeling looking in the mirror and going, I look different to me. Like that's a weird feeling. And then now where do you go from there? And that is why I think that is what is our biggest mission, is trying to help people feel better so that they can live better. And then actually it's our tagline, feel better and live better and know you're not alone, because you're not alone in this world. And we want to encourage women to talk about it like we are right now so that we can go like set a stage for the act 2 of our life and go strive for bigger things. Because now this is the good thing about social media. You can see a woman who at 53 years old which is very inspiring to me. This is something that I love weightlifting. I love strength training. I love seeing a physically strong, and of course, mentally strong woman. And lately I've been seeing women that are taking the bull by the horns and getting their best body, because now we have time, especially as an empty nester, right? And focus and money. You have more money now, ladies. Most of us have more accessible money at this point, not having to pay for children and things like that. So you can do more with your life at this stage of life in most cases, or at least focus, on those things. So that is the hard part, is you're feeling all of this, what we're talking about and going through. But the best part is that we get to actually turn it around, turn it on its ear, and live better and see it in different people. And I think that's really important.
And I think one thing that's important to add on what Anna said, because I'm like, yes, is you got to talk to the right people. And I have made the mistake for sure it was my mom. I was like, when I was going through that stage, and it's not all about premenopause and menopause, but I went to her and I was like, oh my gosh, I went to the holistic doctor and I found out that my hormones, and I was like so excited. And she literally said, oh, I thought we just needed to suffer through menopause. And I was like, whoa. So, but that was their generation and that's fine. So I think I want to be that person where people feel like they can talk to me. And if they can't talk to me, then talk to somebody else. But, sometimes you have to kind of guard maybe a little bit what you're feeling or what you're going through and making sure that you're talking to somebody. Um, I don't know, that not that they have to
Right.
have gone through the same thing, but that are
Yeah.
empathetic, that aren't, they say that sometimes even about goals. It's like, how you're supposed to shout your goals out. Actually, sometimes you need to hold them in, because if you're sharing it with somebody that's going to knock it down, it's going to knock you off course. So I think I'm not trying to be like a, naysayer here, but I do think it's trying to talk to the right people and find those girlfriends or those friends that you feel like you can say these things to, and they're going to help you. And that is what I have found in Anna. We go back and forth, and then we're solution oriented. It's not just cry me a river, which that does happen, but
Well, there's sometimes you just need to get something off of your chest, and sometimes you need to actually brainstorm like what's going to be a helpful solution to this. And they both serve their purpose.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
I totally agree with you. It doesn't serve you any purpose to share your hopes and dreams and visions for the future with people who are not your biggest fans,
Can I, this is a part of our podcast too. I'm gonna kind of give the other side to that, because sometimes if you don't say it to a lot of people, you don't know who your people are. And so, or say it, sometimes you are going to say it to the wrong person, but you got to prepare yourself to know that that's where you want to keep moving forward. So I think that's the other thing is filling your head with the or filling your life with the people that are going to support you, and then
Right.
taking the chance sometimes to scream it from the rooftops and have somebody try to shoot you down, and lean on those people that are supporting you.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, I could go right now, I could go and talk to somebody and say, oh, well, I'm trying, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks, right? I'm not trying to, I'm just making something up. That's not a goal, but and 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 I already discussed it with Christy, and Christy's like, yes, I believe in you. I know what a good example is, actually, dry January. So I committed to doing dry January, right? And I had some people go, I love that for you. Like, oh yeah, that's
for
cute.
you,
Like,
not for me.
yeah, or like
That's actually encouraging though. I love that for you. Or not like, what do you think
no,
you're doing? That's stupid.
it's that like, oh gosh, what, bless your heart.
Like that tone, the
Yeah,
tone.
I love
Yeah.
that for you, or whatever, and not believing that I could do it because I love wine and I love cocktails or whatever. But and then you have those, like, I come home, my husband comes home from work and he's like, oh, we're gonna have our tea again, and he's my support system in that case. So like,
Right.
I'm shouting it from the rooftops, and other people are like, yeah, that I can't see it happening. And then I'm like, wow, okay. So you got to know who. I didn't know those people were there either, by the way. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean I can't drink for a month? And that feeling of those people over there feeling like I can't do it doesn't really bother me, because I have a big group of people that believe in me.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that also is, you don't know whose life you're changing by saying the things to the people that might not believe or agree with you, that you put a twinge in their mind to feel better and look for other solutions as well. So there is kind of that. Just make sure you're padding your life with those people that are going to support you and believe in you.
But I also think that at the core of all of that, like, none of that works if you don't believe in your own ability to accomplish your goals, right? It wouldn't matter if you don't believe in yourself and you have a group of people telling you that you can do it, you still won't.
That's true.
So I think you have to start from there, and that's really what gives you the resolve to stand up for yourself and say, yes, I absolutely can, when people tell you that you can't.
It's kind of like
But
having a heat flash. It comes from the inside out.
From the inside out.
Yeah, but it's hard
gonna be the
because if you
title of
do
this
have a
episode.
goal that you're not completely believing in yet, that's where it's like, be careful and make sure that your core group is encouraging you, right? I think
Right. Yes.
it's funny, like I agree with you. And it's like that core group, because you're right, you do. But if you're strong about it, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
actually. And actually sometimes, we do the opposite. If people, when you have somebody that's telling you you can't do something, which I've had it happen a couple times in my life, I pushed even harder.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
wanted it so bad. I was like, "Oh, you're telling me that I can't do that, and I will." And sometimes it's from people that are very close to you, which is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
It can be your parents, it could be a best friend, and it's from their own, insecurities. Oh my God, hi, word. Are you sure you don't want to edit that? I'm just kidding. Insecurities and worries. That's what that word was
Yeah.
going to be.
Insecure.
Insecure worries.
I like
Yes.
it. New word invented here.
There you go.
It's so funny that this is coming up in this conversation because this morning I read an article that was about advice and like the paradox of advice, which is that most advice you should just not listen to. Because everybody gives advice with let's just assume people are giving you advice with well intentions.
Mhm.
But it's coming from their own lens and from their own experiences and their own vision of their future. They cannot know what it is like for you to be experiencing your life. So take it with a grain of salt,
I love that.
For me, it's like I love when people challenge what I set out there because it's nice. Also, like support to me does not just mean everything I do is amazing and that's all people
Mhm.
are telling me. I like when people question what I'm doing because sometimes they come from an angle that you haven't thought about yet, and that's helpful. Uh, but I mean, my husband has a very close friend who I love having conversations with because he's very smart and hardworking and accomplished. Uh, and he probably is the one who challenges me the most, whether or not he probably doesn't know that. But I will say something and immediately he has like 10 follow-up questions, where I'm like, I feel like I'm being interrogated now. But then I get really into it because I'm like, he's not saying it to be rude. He wants to see me succeed. And I believe that. And he wants to know if I have answers to all of these things that might be hurdles down the road. So before I knew him as well as I do now, I think I would maybe take a little bit of offense. Like, who do you think you are? Like, this rich white man is gonna like talk to me about my experience and my goals for the future. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, bring it. You've got more money in the bank than I do, and you have more accolades. And I am not above learning from you and your experiences. And I can also just be like, that doesn't resonate with me. It's my life and I
Mhm.
do whatever I want.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Yeah. Sometimes I don't ask for advice.
yeah.
I mean, I don't ask for advice very much. And the reason is because I don't want people to be offended if I don't take it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
a whole new
I'm
angle.
like, I want to work through this on my own. Yeah. Because you get nervous, right? Like, what if they give me advice and I don't like it? And a lot of times, don't you think when we ask for advice, we already have an idea of what we want the answer to be?
Hmm. But when you get the advice, it's like I play this game at restaurants when I'm torn between two
Ooh.
meals, and then you ask the waiter or waitress, you know, you choose one for me. I'm good like between this and this. And then they say one, and immediately I'm like, no, I'm gonna go with the other one. Thanks. You just like really
So weird.
solidified in me
I
that
do
is
that to
not
my
what I
husband.
want.
Gosh darn it. All the
Do you?
time. Like whatever you
Do
pick. I
you?
don't know. Yes. You always, and then he's always like, why do you ask me? It's like this earring or this earring. And then I'm like, no, again, I think I already know the
Yeah.
answer, but somehow you feel like you need to voice it. I don't know.
I
It's
think
so
it
weird.
gives you that extra pressure of like, okay, now I have to commit to a decision. And then you're like, that doesn't feel right with me. I'm gonna go with my gut on this one. No, when I started Composed Living 8 years ago, I sent out an email to my closest friends because I was workshopping names for the company. And my very best friend sent me back the feedback for the word composed that it was too formal. It sounded stuffy and it was not for me. And I was like, wanna bet?
That's funny.
I'm gonna
So
trademark it now.
actually, Anna and I did the same thing. And boy, did we overthink think that, but I think it's because you've got the URL and the this, and then does it define? I mean, it was hard, but we picked the thumbnail because we're together all the time, but yet somehow we don't have good pictures together because they're like selfies and videos.
Yeah.
So we were at this event. And so that's our thumbnail. And so one of my good friends, we had a little, Anna, what was it at my house? Like a launch party. We did it the last minute. And she goes, "Oh, that picture of you." Oh, and we're like, "Give us feedback." Right. And we just barely like put the first episode out. She's like, "That picture of you is terrible. I have seen so many better pictures of you." But she's that kind of friend where I'm like, "All right, girl, you're probably right." But it's still there, by the way.
Yeah.
So feel free to take a look and give us a vote. I don't know. It's fine with me. But she goes, "Yeah, you look terrible. I've seen so many better pictures of you."
You know
But
what?
oh,
I
but
love
Anna,
that
and then she
you're
said,
embracing it.
"But Anna looks cute." That's a good friend right there. Just saying. She told me what she really thought. And I was like, okay with it.
See, that's such a perfect example of what I mean, like you can ask for advice, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, you just shrug it off and let it go. Like it's, we each have one opportunity to live our version of our life. It's wonderful to include other people, but at the end of the day, I'm making the rules for
My life.
Oh man. I feel like I could talk to both of you for hours. I love this. One of
Yay.
the questions that we do ask our guests is if there is a word, a feeling, an emotion, like a mantra, something that you are sort of keeping in your heart for this moment in your life. I do know that changes as everything does in our lifetimes. But if there's something that you're working towards sort of like individually or even together with this podcast, I'll kind of share with you last year, my biggest focus was joy. I felt like I had done so much that revolved around accomplishing and productivity and sort of building that there were very few moments that I felt like I could be present enough to actually be joyful. And so that was something I tried to work into every day, every encounter. And now I'm like, something happened towards the end of last year and I was like, it's not my word anymore. Like, I don't feel like that's not my big focus. And so I did a lot of thinking. And for this year, in all aspects, I have switched to sort of a mantra, which is simplify and slay. Slay because I work with a bunch of Gen Zers, they
I
help
love Slay. I
with
love
the
it.
lingo.
Old people like
Last
it
year we
too.
built so much, I started the podcast and we did 30 episodes. We have Composed Living, which had its 7-year anniversary, and there's so many beautiful clients that we work with there. We opened a retail store. We started hosting workshops and events. We also launched a nonprofit, and then I was like, I'm done. I don't want to add anything else to my plate. I want to streamline. I want to do what we're doing now to the best of our ability. And I want that in all areas of my life now. It's like do less, so much better. So that's my biggest focus for this moment in my life. Anna, is there something that resonates with you or jumps out right off the bat where you're like, this is my vibe right now?
Right now, I want to shine.
Ooh.
I want this. It's funny that you brought that up because when I was at church on Sunday, we were talking about your life and what you want to do. It's always in a new year, it's regenerative or whatever. And I just want to shine in all areas. And what I mean by that is not be in the front. I want to shine a light on faith. I want to shine a light on humanity. I want to shine a light so that people can see their way into the rest of their life, and live stronger for longer. It's like a hashtag that we have. I want to shine. That's my word for this year.
Thank you for sharing that. Christy, is there something that jumps out at you?
Well, I don't know if it's a word per se, but it kind of like each year I've had something where I'm like, okay, I've worked on, working out or eating clean or other modalities of just like I have a near infrared sauna to help with repair and all this stuff. Like I'm kind of really into it. So last year and probably continuing on to this year, I wanted to do stuff that makes me happy, not just physically, because I know that working out, we know that that is something that is helpful for that. But I wanted to deal with, traumas and loss. And so I've really stepped out and I'm doing hot yoga. I've done some acupuncture. Gosh, it was prior to the holidays. I've done qigong. We talk about it on the podcast. It's like it's a whole, because it's more the mental connected with the physical, not just the physical. Because if you don't deal with the mental, your body holds on to weight and all of these other things. So for me, it was really, I'm just still doing that because I'm not done. Like, I'm just not done. There are moments still where I'm like, dang it, why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
And then I would say, as far as like a word, I would say I'm pretty outgoing, but I do like to be in control. And so just being bold, like be bold, put yourself out there. We're reaching out to people that are a big deal to be on our podcast. I'm going to networking events. Actually, that's how I met you, at a networking event. And just trying to connect with people. I just feel like that being bold, putting yourself out there. You don't know the cool people you're going to find, like you. Like right away we connected, and then we both had a podcast, which was like so random to me. But it was your soul and your personality that I was drawn to. But you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels very much to me like you're both already living your words, You are being bold in even having this podcast and having these conversations that you are sharing with the world. And that is shining a light on so many of these previously taboo topics for other women. I love the hashtag stronger for longer. That's so cool. I do weight training every week with one of my girlfriends who's a trainer, and we talk about that all the time, the importance for women to do weight training, even if it's just like your own body weight as resistance. Like it's so important for your well-being as you age, staving off osteoporosis and dementia and all of
Yes.
other things. Yeah, wild. I definitely want to age gracefully. I was thinking
Oh,
this
that's what I
morning.
say. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and
Age
gracefully, like I
gracefully.
don't
Gosh
mean that
darn
like
it.
I want to stay physically beautiful for my whole life. I mean, that would be wonderful, but like I want my body to function for a very long
Yeah.
time. Like when I'm a grandmother or a great grandmother, hopefully, I want to be able to like get down on the floor and stand back up
Yes.
again. I
Yeah.
want to be able to tie my own shoes. I want to get in and out of a car, like all of the daily
Yeah.
functionality of using your body. It's so important to me that that works. And
Yeah.
so I never want to say no to life experiences because
She wants to be a yes girl,
yeah,
Christy. Just
yeah,
saying.
I want to be a
Yeah.
yes
She doesn't want
girl.
to say yes to whatever. Like, no, I want to be able to go on the bike. I don't want
Yeah,
to go, oh no, I can't because blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
I'm
I want to
very
be able to
big
do the
fan of,
hike, the walk.
yeah, I want to push through all those
Well, and
limitations if
yeah,
I
and the
can,
working out
for as
now
long as I
for
can.
me is like, so I want to feel good. Like I want to age well and I want to be capable of doing whatever, but I want to feel good. It's not just about looking good.
Yeah.
I want to feel good.
And I
Dr.
think
Mark
when you feel good, you do look good.
Yeah.
Dr. Mark Hyman said, I am training for my 100th birthday. I want to be able to do what I'm doing today when I'm 100 years old. And, because we adopted those teenagers between my babies, I'm a grandmother already. So I can see that I want to be able to pick up and swing around their grandchildren. You know what I mean? Like I want to have that kind of strength. And I am not shy to say I do want to look good for a long time too. Like I understand that we're not supposed to say that, but it's okay. It's okay to say I do want to have a good, a nice appearance as well. And I'm
I
going to
think
keep it
everybody
up.
wants that.
Yeah. So
Very
Yeah.
normal.
ladies, you don't have to be afraid to say, oh, I just want to be strong. No, you want to look good. Let's just
I want
be
all
honest.
of
I want
it.
to be hot. I want to be
Yeah.
hot for the
I
rest
want
of my life.
all of it.
I'll be a
All of
hot great grandma.
it.
Yeah. Well, and have
So
you ever
many
met?
beautiful women that are like setting that example. I don't know
Yes.
why this popped into my head this morning, but I was thinking about I guess just women and getting older. And you know, a lot of them have the help of like full teams who get them all glammed up for
By
award
the way,
shows
I'd like a
and
full
all of
team.
that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Can you
I'll
put
take
in a
the full
good
team.
word for me, please?
I'm not
Yes.
above that.
Yeah, but I don't have it. So anyways.
Uh, but you know, even without that, there's so many women who are 50s and beyond who are absolutely stunning, you know, like with or without work, whatever, it doesn't matter, like to each their own. But then I was thinking about what my grandma looked like. And like when I was born, she could not have been older than 50. And she looked exactly the same way she did when she was 77, you know?
Same. Yes.
The
She was
same.
always
I
a
was like, she had
granny.
the same short hair set in rollers. She wore the same like polyester tracksuits. And I
Oh
was
my
like, was
God.
it just a weird thing that was happening in the 80s?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Actually,
you
think about
looked
what you
like you
just
were
said, though.
100 when you weren't.
Wait, think about what you just said. You said she looked the same in, in her 50s as she did when she was in her 80s, right? Well, if we look the
Yeah,
same
but
as
not
we look,
hot. It was
I
never
know,
Yeah.
hot.
She looked like an 80-year-old when she was 50 though,
Yeah.
but
right?
we're all
That's the
capable of
problem.
it. We're all
Yeah.
capable of it. Then I can look like I do now when I'm in
Yes.
my 80s.
And I
Well,
guess
and
that's
I
the difference is
remember
like we're starting from, I guess, what we think is like a more appealing appearance than
yes.
what, you know, but like even watching Golden Girls, like they were not 80 years old. They were
Blanche was
like, and
50.
they're, yeah,
Blanche
they
was
were
50.
50.
Crazy.
So yeah, hopefully if we start from here and we're 80 and we still look like this, that's great. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and I remember my grandparents, they had a business, and when they retired, they were going to start traveling. Well, guess what happened? When they retired, they weren't physically able. It's so
Yeah.
sad to me. They weren't physically able to go to Europe because they weren't well enough or healthy enough
Yeah.
to be able to walk on a tour. So that's what I mean as far as like, I don't want to be 100 years old, like, what Dr. Mark Hyman is saying, and not be, I want to live as long as I can and physically
Yeah.
be able, whatever that number is. And
100%.
so that definitely drives so many of the things that Anna and I talk about, the guests that we have on, and we are living it to the best of our ability. I mean, it's not infallible. Let me tell you, yesterday I did not work out, but that's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome. You have such a good fitness routine. I'm like struggling to get back into it now. I used to run every single day, no matter where I was. I traveled for work. I would run in every city across the United States. Just loved it.
I love
Loved how
running.
my body felt, loved all of it. Chad and I would do half marathons together. We'd run together. It was such a part of my life. And then I had 2 foot surgeries. And then we moved to a new town where it was like so treacherous to run, like just steep ups and downs in every direction. And so I just lost the habit. And I've never really been like a gym person, so I didn't really replace it with anything.
Yeah, you
And
got to find your
now,
happy.
yeah, so I started working out with Liz, my trainer, and then I committed to her on a podcast episode that I would train for a half marathon with her this year. So
Ah,
Yay.
created a
yay.
whole, but she's an ultra marathon runner. Okay. So she just did her first 100-kilometer race.
Oh my gosh.
Where
Oh my
she
gosh.
came in
Well, you're in
third.
good hands, girl. You're
She
in
came
good
in
hands.
third.
Cool,
Oh my
cool.
gosh.
So I'm gonna run a half a mile, maybe without stopping. That's where we're starting from.
Good for you.
But so now I'm doing 4 runs a week plus 1 day a week of training with her, and it feels so good.
It
But
does. I
yesterday
love
was
it.
the first day that I was like, all I had to do was a mile and a half, and I was like dragging my feet. It was 5 p.m. by the time I finally got outside. It's like, if you don't go now, it's going to be dark, and you have
Right.
today.
Those are the biggest wins though, like when you really don't feel like it, really, really, and you have not a good workout or whatever, like those count. You need to
Oh
check
yeah.
that off. I mean, obviously you still went, but I'm saying like, I know I've gone in and like doinked around and then I'm like, oh, whatever. But no, that's a win, man. You stepped in the
Yeah.
gym or you went outside or whatever.
I told myself, I was like, you know what? Don't run it then. If running is the resistance, go outside and walk. It's very easy for you to just take a walk for a mile and a half, 20 minutes, whatever it is, beautiful night out, and you'll feel better. And then sure enough, by the time I got to the top of my street, I was like, if I just ran this, I'd be done faster.
Good.
Love it. Love it.
But yeah, it felt really good to just get it done. I'm also doing dry January. And we didn't really tell, I mean, I think we told 2 people that we were doing it. And it's so funny because I feel like I can't share my experience of it because I miss having a glass of wine.
I do too.
And I'm like,
I
I
do
know
too.
that people should love this and it should be super easy, but like, I've probably had wine most days for the last 20 something years of my life. And I'm
Yeah.
not, anyone who knows me knows, like, I'm not a big fan of being like drunk. I'm not,
Right.
it's not so that I can be intoxicated. It's like a calm down ritual for me at the end of the evening. Like it's nighttime, so you light a candle and you have a glass of wine and you enjoy it. And sometimes, people come over, you have another glass, whatever. Like it's just been such a staple in my life that I'm finding that the social habit of it is very difficult to not miss. I don't miss actually, like I love drinking tea. I'm trying so hard to just reshift my mentality to like, I sleep so good and I'm thankful for that. I wake up and I feel super clear. I'm thankful for that. Most days I have so much more energy. Like I don't have an afternoon coffee. I don't need to feel like I need to take a nap. I'm thankful for that. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, but I could also just like call Liz and we could go to Malibu Wines.
Yeah.
We could have a
Well,
glass
call
of
me,
sparkling
call me in
rosé.
February. Call me in February. I'll go to Malibu Wines with you.
I
It's
know. Like I
it's
think
funny.
that part of it.
We even had a couple over for dinner and it was so funny. I text her, I'm like, hey, you guys want to come over for dinner? And she said, yeah. And I go, FYI, before you answer, we're doing dry January. And she's like, dry January is great. They came over, we had mocktails, we played
Yeah.
games. It was really fun. But
Fun.
halfway through, I was like, God, wouldn't it be fun if John could make us one of his cocktails? But I said, hey, don't get me wrong, February 1st, it is on, but I'm committing to this and I'm doing this.
I love
So but it's been good.
Yeah. I mean, it truly does feel like physically, it feels absolutely wonderful to the point where I'm like, I wish that I would feel this way always. And I know that I could because I could just not drink always and I would always feel hydrated and wonderful. So I think that's going to be my challenge for February will be like reintegrating only the aspects that I really enjoy about having a glass of wine with someone. And maybe that makes it like more elevated. Like we're going out, so I'm not going to be like, okay, what's the cheapest Pinot Noir you have? Maybe I'll get, the glass that I really want, even if it's crazy LA prices. Or, I don't
I
know.
love
I need
it.
to find like a new pattern with it because that's another, like, I really do enjoy challenging myself to break habits that exist only because you've done them for a long time,
Oh, I like that.
So we'll
Break
see
habits
what
that
it
you
transitions into.
break habit. What did you say? I like it. I gotta write that down and actually
Of
I'll listen
breaking
back.
habits that are habits only because you've been doing them for so long.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's not
Not
really serving me a purpose.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
And it's expensive.
Did you pick your half marathon that you're gonna do?
Yeah, we're doing the salt. It's a wine half marathon in Solvang.
Oh my gosh, I heard that one's really good. Isn't that one in March?
It's in May. It's on Mother's
Oh,
Day
May.
weekend, in Solvang. So Liz and my husband Chad and I are all gonna run, and then Liz's very supportive husband will, hold all of our cell phones and
He'll
keep
drink some
somewhere.
wine and watch.
He'll keep
Yes.
us a spot in line at the wine tastings afterwards.
Very
Well,
good.
that's
But I'm
awesome.
excited. But by this Saturday, I already have to like have worked up to a 5 mile run. And I'm like, I don't see how that's possible, but
Just
Oh,
the
wow.
next step, right?
guess we'll just give it a go. I do have one last question because I'm very curious and very excited to talk to two moms of older kids. Did you always know that you would miss your kids when they moved out of the house? Like, were you prepared to have that emotional response? Or was
No.
it a surprise to you that you reacted in that way?
Uh,
Anna, you
I'll-
said no.
Yeah, no. Frankly, because I stayed home with my children, I remember I am not exaggerating this moment of it was 3 different moms in my kid's senior year telling me that I'm going to be beside myself when my kids leave because I was a helicopter mom, like self-proclaimed and very proud of it. Like I was there for everything. I didn't miss anything. And that's a story all in itself, but I went to everything I could go to. I was with them all the time. And when we went on vacation, I didn't miss them because I was
Relaxing.
with them all the time.
Yeah.
And people thought I was crazy. I would say, no, I'm no. And I would say it out loud. People don't say these things out loud. So when they were getting ready to go to school, I'm like, these people think I'm going to be like sitting in my closet, rocking back and forth. And their first year that they went off to school, my youngest kids went off to school in the same year. So my two older ones had already been through it. So I thought I'd already been through it. Right. Then, when the first year, it was like they were at summer camp. It was fun. I was like, this is cool. The second year, when they went back to school after Christmas, that is when it took me by surprise. Now, of course, that year was also the year of COVID and all of the things that happened in that time. But I don't think it would have been any different. It was all of a sudden, it was real, and my life was my own, and I didn't know how to not be a helicopter in their life. I didn't know how to not. I couldn't be a drone. I was like, hold on a minute. So, and you still, I mean, they still lean on you and they still want you. And every time they want you, it puts you back in that, even today, even Christmas time this year, you're on autopilot. As soon as your kids come home, your heart is full and you forget that when they leave, that they're gone. And it is a very, it shook my world. It shook my world this year in particular. I was like, wow, it doesn't get better. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't. After college, it can even get worse. And I actually heard somebody else say the same thing when I was having that conversation with them yesterday.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, because even after college, they could move farther away. Like they have less time. They're working full time, or maybe they've met someone who potentially becomes a life partner. Like that's when their lives really start to become their own, like completely focused on themselves and their own growth.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with your son. I heard it one time say that your husband is your first love of your life, but your son is the last boy you'll fall in love with. And I have made it, and I said it their whole lives, that I was raising somebody else's husband, right? I knew that someday he was not going to put us first. And our son is engaged and getting married in May. And it's the time has come. So even though you think you're preparing yourself for it, the time has come, and you're like, hold on a minute. It's like when you were a child and you had to leave Disneyland, you knew you were going to have to go home at some point, but I just didn't want to leave.
Yeah. Have any of your kids started hosting their own holidays yet?
No.
Okay. I feel like that's the next level.
Well, they still, all four of them, Easter and Thanksgiving are my favorites. Actually, sort of, I guess, but they don't. One of my children actually on Christmas Day does her own thing with her husband and children, but I've never been a big Christmas Day thing. And when I went through the first bout of my empty nest thing, I sold my house. My kids would come home to and have their rooms in. We had moved into 2 condos and they're smaller. So for Easter, which is one of my favorite holidays, I still make all of the food, but we go to our daughter's house and she hosts it at her house.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Christy? Were you dreading this moment of one of your daughters moving out, or were you like,
well,
finally?
It's interesting because I was like an extreme, like career woman that, in that. And when my husband and I bought our dance studios, we moved to a new city. We had an 8-week-old, which is my oldest child. And my mom was a workaholic. Based on the hours that we work, I never saw her. So my mission was literally to be there for everything. And so I put my work life, my husband and I, around being there for me, picking them up after school, feeding them, him coming home for dinner, and all of the things. And so now that they are 17 and 19, my oldest daughter really they're into acting and singing and so on. So she wanted to go to New York and London. And I was just like, oh no. Well, she ended up at USC, which is drivable. And so it has not hit me yet because we go in, we go to the football games, we go to the basketball games. I just saw her this past weekend. And I still have the other one at home, but I'll tell you, there are moments where I get very anxious in thinking about it, of what this next stage is going to be like. But you're going to have to follow the podcast because I'm not there yet. But it does, I'll get like worried all of a sudden where I'm thinking about, the unknown. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm mommy manager for the singer, and I'm, semi mommy manager, but she's in college, right? For the actress. So like, I'm hoping I get to stay mommy manager as they continue with their career. That's how I vision it. But what I know based on my mom is that it's not my goal. She has her own vision for what her career looks like, and I may not be a part of it. Both of them. So, yeah. By the way, I'm like talking about it. It's like it's hard when you're,
I think
ugh.
yeah, I think I'm still in the phase of like, I can't foresee that we would have an emotional response. Like in my mind, it's still so logical where it's like, what a
Yeah.
beautiful journey. They're going to turn into their own adults. They're going to go out and live their own life. I'm like so in my head
Good.
about it,
Well,
This year we're going to take the middle one to look at some schools on the East Coast. And even that, I'm like, what a beautiful journey for you. I love this for you. Get out, live in a different state, like have all of these experiences. So I'm very curious to see if that stays that way. And then also like how our marriage changes when we don't have 3 kids living in the house with us.
yeah.
That was going to be my biggest thing, is the biggest advice that nobody asks for to prepare yourself for empty nest is make sure that you know your husband. Make sure that you know him. It's very controversial what I say, but somebody told me when I had my son to always put my husband first, but even before my kids. And I'm not talking about feeding him, like if I was running out of food, of course I'd give it to my kids first, right? But as far as in emotional and relational things, to put your husband first, because and if you ask my kids, it was really cute. My brother one time said, who does mom love more? And they all said dad. Both said dad at the same time. He was talking about them, and they said dad. But put your husband for, and if you haven't started, do it now. You have to know him, because if it wasn't for him knowing me, I don't know how I'd have gotten through this. It's hard. Now, I want to tell you an analogy that I had that came in my head when you were talking. Imagine an artist painting this picture, this beautiful picture, and it may be abstract, it may be just a house on a hill, right? And they're like, this is my home in Tennessee, and it's on this hill with this beautiful tree and all these things. And somebody buys it, this beautiful piece of art, and somebody buys it and they go, it just reminds me of my home in Sausalito in California. And that's what happens with your kids. That artist that painted that picture, that was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever painted, and this is how I see it. And then somebody that loves it too, they love it. My children love their life, but it may not be the life that I pictured for them. I'm not quite there yet, but or our life together that I pictured, but it still is beautiful, but it still does kind of make you sad. And you're not prepared. You cannot be prepared for that. It's crazy.
I do. I agree that there's a lot of benefit of putting your marriage or your partnership, whatever that looks like for you, if you're in that phase of your life. You have to prioritize it, because if you don't, you're not going to be well equipped to raise a family together. You're certainly not going to be well equipped to go into retirement and empty nesting together.
Yeah.
I think that's where you see a lot of marriages start to fall apart, is around this age, because kids are getting older. There's now an awareness that you're going to be left alone with your partner. And if you don't like them anymore, or you don't know them anymore, or you're not connecting on that way, what would be the benefit of staying together? Like, it's,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
see how that becomes a turning point for a lot of relationships. I think that's what happened in my own parents' relationship, which dissolved when we were sort of in high school and getting to that phase of they realized that they would have to be alone together for the rest of their lives. And
Well, I
turns out
think
they did not want to.
you get so dang busy doing life, working, and if you have kids, raising the kids. And so,
Yeah.
my advice that was not asked is making sure that you have things that you do together, because then you can connect, like your own things. So if it's biking, if it's hiking, if it's, because like obviously men have different things that they're into. So having like common hobbies, if maybe it's going to the gym together, I don't know.
Yeah.
But having things that you do together, my husband and I work together forever. So,
I think
we
together and
definitely
separate.
we do things together a lot. We sit on the couch, we hold hands, the kids see that. And it's not perfect by any means, but, we're definitely making an effort now as I'm crazy, scared in Anna, having her go before me, of just making sure that we're doing some things together.
I love that. Chad and I actually tried taking ballroom lessons together.
Oh,
It did not go well. But I'm so happy that we tried it. And now we know that that is not something that brings us joy to do together. I think it caused a lot of anxiety. And then it got to a point where we were like dreading Monday nights. And then I was like, why are
that's
we
because you
doing
didn't
this?
come
Like,
to
this
our
is not for
studio.
us, like
Yeah.
we should not be trying to force something into being our thing when like we're dreading the activity together. But
You
we,
got to have a really good teacher. It's all
yeah, and
about, it's
also
like
like I
anything.
think some people don't find joy in dancing. And that's him. Like he just wants to dance and be wild. Like so ballroom is not, it's not his personality. Like he doesn't want to follow instructions. He gets really like flabbergasted. And then because he's so competitive and he wants to be good, it feels like a really negative experience for him. Um, I mean, like the whole point was just that we wanted to try to do something together and we did, and now we'll find something different. But throughout our whole marriage, like we have encouraged each other to do things alone, which I love. Like he loves golf. It's like great. That's your biggest passion in life, you should be doing this every day. Like you should be working in something that you love every day. And sometimes I'll go with him. Most of the time he goes alone. We both love traveling together and we make sure that we take at least one long trip every year, just the two of us, no kids. And then we'll plan a vacation that is just for the kids, maybe not something that
Awesome.
we would have done, but that we know that they will enjoy. And then on our 5th anniversary, actually, I don't know if it'll show up. There's a tiny tattoo. It's the only tattoo I have. Uh, but when Chad and I first started dating, it was a challenge. Like we both had previous relationships, which is where our separate children came from. And so blending a family together that has so many different components and so many different personalities and emotions was tricky. And his kids were 2 and 4. So still so much interaction with their mom, who herself had a lot of emotions about all of it and her stage in life. And anyone who's a step parent knows what I'm talking about. It can be complicated. And he would doodle the tattoo that I have on my arm now, on like little love notes or post-its, and would just say like, it has to just be us. At the core of everything, it is us. And everything else that happens outside of that is either irrelevant or it's the next level of importance. But the farther out you get, the less important it is. We are the core of this family. And if we are not tight, then nothing else will be. And that's kind of where I think we've been able to make it through a lot of pretty intense challenges in life over the last decade and longer. And it's nice to have that reminder. That's why I put it where I can see it. That when things get really difficult, it's like it has to just come back to us being really tight and really aligned, and everything else will fall into place. We'll figure out how to parent together. We'll figure out how to co-parent together. We'll figure out finances, moving, empty nesting, all of it. But yeah, you really have to have that relationship be stable.
Yes. At the front. It's not always stable, but at the
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
Ladies, you're not gonna believe this. I have an appointment. The time just totally
my
went
gosh.
away, and I have an
Okay.
appointment at 10:30.
We gotta go. We gotta go. Thank you both so
This
much
was
for the time
fantastic.
today.
Oh my God. We can literally talk. I mean, is our
Forever.
name
I know.
appropriate or what? Girl, can you talk? I mean, you could literally be a co-host too. Let me tell you.
So good.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for
It was
having
such a
us.
great time. And I love your podcast. It's so awesome. I love your social media, everything.
Thank
You are doing the thing, girl.
That is very
Congratulations.
sweet. We will add all of the ways to find you and your podcast and your socials in the show notes so people can
Awesome.
follow along on your journeys everywhere. And
Alrighty.
Awesome.
thanks again.